Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about how to simplify fractions. So we look at normally three rules when trying to simplify. First of all, we need to check if the top number is bigger than the bottom number. We often call the top number the numerator and the denominator the bottom number. Sometimes what helps me remember which one's which is I call the denominator the one that's down, D for down, denominator. So in this example, 5 and 30, the numerator is smaller, so I can just go on to the next step. We'll go on and I'll let you know later what to do if it is bigger. Step number 2, it says find the largest number that can be divided into both the numerator and denominator. We sometimes call this the highest common factor. So I need to think, what goes into both 5 and 30? And I know if I know my 5 times table is right, I know that 5 goes into 5 and 5 goes into 30. So you've got to remember that you always need to do whatever you do to the top, you need to do the bottom. Whatever you need to do the bottom, you've got to do to the top. So I know that 5 divided by 5 will be an answer, that will be correct. And I know that 30 divided by 5 will be an answer. It won't have any random decimals in it. It's a whole number, so it will work. So I'll do that. So 5 divided by 5 equals 1. And 30 divided into goes, if I count by 5 to 30, I go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 was 6. So I have my 6 here. So I've got 1 over 6, or I could call it 1/6. And step 3 just says check again if I can divide them both by another number. And by this time, I can only divide it by 1, which isn't going to help me. It's just going to be the same answer, 1 over 6. So I know that it's the bottom, it's the smallest number I could possibly get. Great, let's go on to the next example. So here I've got a really large number and I'm not quite sure what its highest common factor is. I'm not sure if, let's say 8 goes into it, or I'm not really sure about, maybe 12 fits, I'm not quite sure. One strategy you can use is to just think of your divisibility rules. What is that, you might ask? It means tricks that you can use to know what numbers go into what numbers. So as an example, we often say that 2, its rule is if the number is even, then 2 will always fit. So I can see that 46 and 68 is an even number. So because of that, because you remember even numbers, any numbers that have a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8 at the end of the number is even. So because it's got a 6 and it's got an 8 over here, I know it's even. So I know that 2 will definitely fit. Maybe there'll be other numbers, but let's just start off with 2 because I know it'll work. So this is not the highest common factor, but it is at least a factor. You may as well start somewhere. So if I go 46 divided by 2, I could count by 2s, or I could use a different strategy, like because 4 is even as well as 6 is even, I probably can just go half of 4 is 2, half of 6 is 3, so I know it's 23. Another strategy, that doesn't always work, especially if it's odd, as in 56, I wouldn't split 5 because that would not work. Another strategy I could do is do it like short division or long division, so I go 2 into 6 and 8, so I go 2 into 6 goes 2, 4, 6, goes 3 times. 2 into 8 goes 2, 4, 6, 8, so that's 4 times. So, and then I've got no more numbers to go, no remainders, so my answer is 34. And now, again, I go back to, if you remember, step 3, which was check again if there's a number that goes into it. And I think 23, 34, is there something that goes in? Well, again, if I know my number facts, I know that 23 is what we call a prime number, which means there's no numbers that go into it. So 7 can't fit because 7 goes into 21. 8 won't fit. No number will fit into it. So yes, something can go into 34. I could divide it by 2, or other numbers that go into 34. But nothing can go into 23. So that means that neither number can be divisible by the same number. So that means it's the smallest it can get. So 23 over 34 is my smallest and most simplified version of that. For my next example, we've got something where maybe 2 might not work, but maybe another number works. But you know what? In this example, 3 could fit into 9, but 3 can't fit into 13, so that doesn't work. I keep thinking, I go, you know what? No, you know what? Doesn't work. So that means, again, this one, it's finished, yeah? Because I've gone through and there's nothing that can be divided into both. So I just have to say that's my answer, 9/13. With my question over here, we call this a mixed fraction when I have a whole number by the side of it and then a fraction next to it. So what that just means is, let's say if I had some chocolate bars, it means I've got a chocolate bar and it's cut up into 12. So just pretend I cut this into really nice 12 even spaces. I'm not going to do it accurately for you now. Pretend it's 12. So it's just saying I've colored in a whole chocolate bar. So every single square is colored in. So it means I've got 12 out of 12 colored in, and it means I need to now get another chocolate bar to show 8/12. So again, I show the same size chocolate bar. It's got exactly the same amount of cut up pieces. It should have 12 lines. Obviously, I'm not drawing it accurately, so forgive me. And I'll color in 8 of them. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I just need one more. There you go, out of 12. So this is showing me I've got a whole chocolate bar, so 12 over 12, which can be written as, if I simplify it, I could go 12 divided by 12 and 12 divided by 12. So I can actually see that that'll equal 1 over 1. And whenever a number has a 1 as the denominator, the bottom number, it means that I can actually rewrite that as just the top number as itself. So my answer is just one whole chocolate bar. So I've got one whole chocolate bar with 8/12 left over. So I actually can simplify this though, because I don't actually need it to be cut into 12. I could get out my glue and stick some of the chocolate together and simplify it. So I've got, as I said, if I look over here again, we've got what goes into 8 and 12. There will be maybe a few numbers that can work. So I know that 2 will fit. It's probably better to find the highest common factor though. So I know that 4 fits into both 8 and 12, because I know that 4 times 2 is 8, and I know that 4 times 3 is 12. So if I do them both by 4, then I should get my answer. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. Yeah, so here's my full answer. So I've got one whole thing, so I don't need to simplify my 1. So we've got 8 divided by 4 is 2, and then I've got 12 divided by 4 is 4, 8, 12. Remember, as I said, 3. So my answer is 2 over 3. So 1 and 2/3 is the same as 1, 8, 12. So it just means I'm going to redraw my chocolate bar. So instead of being cut up into 12ths, it's going to be cut up into the bottom number. So it's 3. So it's going to be in thirds. So if I again redrew it, they're both in thirds. It means I've got a whole chocolate bar full, and then I've got one chocolate bar left that's just got 2 colored in. So I've got one chocolate bar, 3 over 3, which is the same as, if I divided it, it'd be 1 over 1, which is the same as 1, and then I've got 2, 3 left, so there you go. It's the same amount of chocolate, it just means we've cut it up differently. Brilliant. Here's an example of something where the top number is bigger. So if we look at the numerator, we can see that it's bigger than the denominator. So we call this an improper fraction. Back over here where the top number is smaller than the bottom number, we call it a proper fraction. So this is a mixed proper fraction. The examples over here was just, it's not mixed because it doesn't have a whole number. We just call it a proper fraction because the top number is bigger than the bottom, top number is smaller than the bottom number. Here, the top number is bigger, so we actually need to do a first trick. Most questions that ask you to simplify always want you to make it proper first. So the way we do that is we divide. So I want to go, and one way I can think of it is this little line here, we can draw it like this as well. So it could be 14 like that, and that symbol just often means, and if you've never noticed this before, it looks exactly like Here's a number here, here's a number here. It looks like they're just divided by a symbol. Hey, doesn't it? So I can just go 14 divided by 8, which equals, or I can count by 8, so 8. And if I go again, it's 16, so it's too far. So I'm just going to go 8, which is once. And then I see how much remainder do I have till I get to 14 again. So if I counted by 8, and I'm going to keep going, I'm going to count by ones and see how much I have to go to get to 14. So I'm on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I had 6 left over to go, 6 remainder to get to 14. So I can say I've got 1 with 6 remainder, and the bottom number, the denominator, is always going to stay the same. So I'm going to keep putting that 8 in again. So 14 over 8 can be rewritten as a proper fraction as 1/6/8. And again, don't forget to check if you can still simplify. So I can make this smaller again. So I think what can go into both 6 and 8. And I know 2 fits. I know 3 can fit in 6, but 3 can't fit 8. So it looks like 2 is the biggest number and the only number that works. So it will be, I write that 1 again because I don't need to divide that. It's a 6 divided by 2, which is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the answer is 1 3/4, or 1 with 3 over 4 left, and that's its most simplified version. And here's my final example. Again, this is a improper fraction. The top number is bigger than the bottom. So again, if I tried to simplify it first, which it doesn't matter if you try and convert it first or not. So I can go, what goes into both 12 and 6? Well, 2 goes into both, 3 goes into both, and 6 goes into both, because 6 times 2 is 12. So 6 is my biggest, highest common factor. So I'm going to divide them both by 6, which gives me 12 divided by 6 is 2. 6 divided by 6 is 1. And as I said before, if the bottom number is a 1, it means I can rewrite it as just a whole number, as whatever the top number is, the numerator. So my answer is it's just 2 whole. So I have 2 full chocolate bars that are cut up into 6, and I've got no leftover. So I've got 2 chocolate bars, that's my answer. All right, I hope that made sense, and I hope that you can now simplify fractions. All the best.